Joe Rogan and Russell Brand, arguably two of the most important voices in the current counterculture. In fact, Joe Rogan more important to the point that I'm about to make, as he suffered COVID and did very unconventional treatments for COVID and has become an important voice for those who have suffered vaccine injuries. And Russell Brand has also been on the front lines of getting out the disinformation that Pfizer has put out, all of the things that they are covering up about vaccine injuries and vaccine deaths. Two very prominent, two very important voices. So, in a grand act of irony, it was neither one of these two, but in fact, this pop culture piece of shit who was finally able to make it trend on Twitter over the past couple of days. Finally, a trend on Twitter about vaccine injuries. That's right, little Justin and his old lady, who made a big production about being vaxxed and boosted. Well, his old lady had a stroke and now he's got facial paralysis. You see, that's what it takes now. Prominent speakers, intelligent, cultured, thoughtful, critical thinking individuals, they don't do anything. We simply respond to pop culture. In the same way that there was more coverage given to Amber Heard and Johnny Depp than a lot of the stuff that was going on. But it's okay. We're used to these kind of tactics from the Ministry of Truth. The same Ministry of Truth, by the way, that tried to sell us all week long that this little demonstration, we're all familiar with it. We've been beaten over the head with it for the past week, was the single, quintessential, existential, those are all my college words, I've got like 3 of those, threat to our democracy. A threat to our democracy. Keep in mind the same Ministry of Information that tried to convince us that these were peaceful protests. You see, this was January the 6th of 2021, and this was, well, May the 29th of 2020. We'll be getting into more of that in a bit. But again, the same people who tried to convince us that this was a peaceful protest, and this was a peaceful protest outside the Supreme Court. Let me see if you can spot any similarities here. Big crowd outside a federal government building, some property damage, few cops getting roughed up, but no fires. Big crowd outside a federal government building, a lot of pushing and shoving, few cops get roughed up, but no fires. Existential threat to democracy, peaceful protest. Also a peaceful protest. Are you all keeping up now? I know it can be difficult. Now, this was related to this. You see, this demonstration that I'm showing you here was outside the Supreme Court during the nomination process for Brett Kavanaugh. This was a truly peaceful protest outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house after the leak about the impending ruling that could overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, it is a peaceful protest. However, under the letter of federal law, protesting outside a federal judge's house with the intent to influence its decision is, in fact, a felony. So you can guarantee that the Merrick Garland Justice Department, that is hell-bent for leather to act on this, certainly acted on this, right? Well, no, not at all. In fact, they didn't act on that even after a man showed up, and you may not even have heard of this because it was buried in the back pages of all sources of mainstream media. A man showed up with a Glock 17, 2 extra magazines, zip ties, pepper spray, burglar's tools, and a sundry collection of other items with the stated intent of killing Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. But this that we're looking at right here, a peaceful protest. Just like this one. That's right. We're back to the Handmaid's Tale lunatics, but here they are demonstrating outside the house of another Supreme Court justice, my Amy. That's right, Amy Coney Barrett. Now, my Amy has proven disappointing in a number of her decisions, but she's still my Amy. And at the end of the day, she's still a fucking Supreme Court justice. So the self-righteous Handmaid's Tale weirdos here are in violation of federal law to the point of felony. And once again, the Merrick Garland Justice Department has refused to act on this simple, irrefutable fact. That's right, boys and girls. So once again, for the sake of the Ministry of Information, existential threat to American democracy, peaceful protest, accurate assessment of peaceful protest, accurate assessment of peaceful protest. This one's a felony. This one's a felony. Now, they can't seem to get their facts straight, but they seem to think that there is a drive behind all of this that is rooted in white supremacy. Yes, white supremacists were the ones who were behind, this one, the existential threat to democracy. Here's the thing. The ADL, much like the SPLC, the Anti-Defamation League, much like the Southern Poverty Law Center, their entire existence is based around finding Nazis under every bed. So when you go to the ADL and their website and they have a graph that looks like this, you would think, hey, here's a reliable source for the number of white power, right-wing extremist, hate, violent events from 2012 through 2021, and they graph it year by year. Well, for calendar year 2021, it is an accurate assessment, and it comes to the whopping number of, brace yourselves, I hope you're sitting down, 26. That's right, 26 racially motivated, violent hate attacks from right-wing extremists, according to the Anti-Defamation League. That's right. A whole lot of people have been doing a little bit of this. Oh, you're scratching your head right now? Yeah, you might not have known this, but technically, it was Flavor Aid at Jonestown. That's the source of the soundbite. Now, look, we are in a weird paradigm right now, and it's hard to tell sometimes, whether the show trials are reminding me of this guy or whether the use of propaganda is reminding me of this guy. But whether we're gravitating towards this guy or this guy, I think we could all stand to go back and read the classic works of this fucking guy. And in the final analysis, remind ourselves that it was a warning, not a guidebook. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat dose of the truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It is time once again for a slightly belated Sunday sermon. It's not as easy as I make it look, people. Gonna do a quick roll call, see who all is on board early. Drum roll! Hard charging out of the starting gate, man. Yes, we are running a little bit behind. Ran into some heavy weather coming over the pass again from Portland. Over there at PDX, training with my boy Morgan. Learning those stick and knife skills. The older you get, the harder you got to work to be a little bit harder to kill, man. Morgan Garrett, by the way, Paquita Tertia. If you were in the PDX area and you were looking for some Filipino martial arts training, definitely look up Morgan. It's been a couple of weeks since I could make it out there. Just like I missed the sermon last week. Whole lot of stuff going on at a personal level. But it was good to get back over training with Morgan again. Let me do a quick roll call. Let's see who's on board here. Brother Ryan, good to see you. Glad you made it. I know you're out there in the middle of a project, man. Don't feel obligated. If you got to catch the replay, catch the replay. But you fucking be safe out there, bro. Brother Joel on board. Who else? Let me go. Honda Wade, right on. Cool. Hey, thought you were late for the party. No, I'm late. Bro. This one's on me. Don't even worry about it. And, of course, we've got Roman and, of course, his lovely wife, Carrie, from opiumtales.com. Good to see you guys on board early. Let's go on strolling down through the roll call. I think I saw lovely Miss Emmy, Brother James Pearson, my LEO brethren. Good to see you. Hey, sporting the Spear colors today. Sporting the Spear colors, man. A little bit of solidarity with Coach Blower. G-Dub, man, I did get your text message, and I wanted to get into that, but unfortunately I didn't have time for the show prep to be able to really do it justice. But we're going to be talking a lot more about that in the weeks going forward as this crisis gets worse. G-Dub, by the way, done a ton of stuff in the show. Outlaw trucker out there on the front line, seeing what's going on with the diesel shortages and the diesel price increases and supply chain fuck-ups and all the other stuff. He's got a good perspective. He's done a lot for the program. G-Dub, glad to have you on board. Let's see, Kurt Voigt, fellow denizen of the inland Northwest. Chances are, no guarantees yet, but I may be a little bit closer to you here in about a month, Kurt. So hopefully we'll be able to get in some dives. Joey, the Sultan of Sarcasm. Oh, my beloved Denise. My son, yes, Sergey loves you too because Russia. Got your text, Mama. Thank you for that. Thank you for that follow up. I miss you, sweetheart. I really hope you're doing well. Emmy, original sinner sister herself, on board. You know, Emmy, I was looking at a meme and I thought it was a Robert Howard meme that somebody sent my way a little bit earlier about how one day we will pray that someone had been there with a sword. And dude, you know, I couldn't have been more accurate. Brother Jeff Truitt, since when did he turn away from his left-leaning ways? Must have been the Wi-Fi. Jeff Truitt, man. Me and Jeff go all the way back to fucking grade school, man, if you can believe it. He's got his own YouTube channel, The Treasure Monk. He's doing a lot of that metal detecting stuff. By the way, Brother Paulo really digs your channel. Brother Paulo from Fucker Tactical. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So thanks for being on board, Jeff. I love you. Appreciate the little drop in the collection plate from last week as well, and everybody else who contributed to the collection plate. Thank you. Bodie Sands on board. Hello, Bodie. What's up, fam? And of course, Mr. Wright made it just in time. Braden Bundy, long time, my friend. Good to see you too, man. I see you out there all patched up and everything now, man. Look at you. Right on, man. Moving up in the world. Good to see you, Braden. Happy you're on board. Another like-minded kindred spirit from up here in the Pacific Northwest. Keep in mind, guys, anywhere east of the Cascades, that's where the same people are. Okay, so that's where Braden and I cross paths. It's good. Let's get the red more likes. I only see 4. Right on. Hey, yeah, right. If you guys are on, YouTube. Give me a like, smash the fuck. What is it? Tim Pool's always saying, smash that like button. Yeah, man, smash the fuck out of that like button. It moves me up in the algorithm and makes my stuff a little bit more accessible. And if you are on YouTube and you have not already done so, please, folks, I urge you to subscribe. Please subscribe. The more subscribers we get on, the closer we get to actually being able to get a little bit bigger reach. You know, I don't have any illusions about being able to monetize this thing because of the content, because of my use of harsh language, because of because YouTube, and they're a bunch of censorious assholes. In fact, they actually censored 2 of my comments on a thread that had fuck all to do with the sermon this week. We can get into that in a little bit. I'll touch briefly on it right before I give the sponsor shout outs here. Going to go ahead and bring down the volume on that bumper music. The bumper music, as always, the name of the band is Red Desert, from the smoldering embers of the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I have gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. All right, yeah, so YouTube, yes. I made a comment on a thread. There is a homeless camp, and it's right by the BART bunker there in Spokane. And apparently a denizen of that camp has his own YouTube channel. Now, these are the people that we're supposed to feel sorry for because they're so fucking deprived and they don't have all the privileges and conveniences and everything that we do. And yet this guy has not only a smartphone, but his own fucking YouTube channel with 98 followers. He popped onto a thread for a video that I had posted independent of my own channel, and was, well, what do you suppose we should do? Maybe we should all show up to your house. And you guys can guess about how that went. Basically just an open invitation that I would love nothing more than for him and the entire camp to try. I really, really just revel in the thought of that. But I made some comments. I kept it above board. I didn't use any obscenities, anything like that. And I go back and I check later because I reposted to my personal and my fan pages that I'd gotten into this verbal altercation with the guy. And it turns out YouTube had taken the liberty of going through and just eliminating all my comments. You know, like I basically shred the guy, and then YouTube's like, "Oh, well, no, dude, he's shredding the guy, and this is a guy we're supposed to feel sorry for." So, and you know, they didn't penalize me, they didn't give me any points or anything, say that I had committed any violations. They just eliminated my shit. like it never happened. That memory hole thing. Again, that memory hole thing. Again, getting back to this guy. So there's that. And I was thinking about this the other day, the Facebook memories features, man. I think about Orwell with regard to that, because you remember that moment in 1984 where Winston is holding that picture and he's like, no, this is proof. This is proof that this thing existed, and the party can say that it didn't exist. So we burn it in the memory hole, but I'm holding it. It's right here. It's fucking proof. I'm being mildly hyperbolic here, but I see the Facebook memory feature like that. You guys see me post some of the stuff in the memories. I can't post it on my fan page, but I post it to my personal page, and it's like, it's right there, man. It's like, there's the proof. I fucking told you. I told you I'd been on this Ukraine thing since right after Maidan. I told you I was one of the first people to call it on Hunter Biden being important to Burisma, and then we just go back further and further and further, and it's right there. One of the things that I love about doing these videos is because this is evidence. You guys can go back, a year from now, 2 years from now, and say, hey, Rev, this is where you were. And you can either say, hey, which about 97% of the time it works out this way. Hey, Rev, dude, you were spot the fuck on. And then there's the 3% of the time, which I am glad to acknowledge. Doing these videos keeps me fucking honest. As Andrew Rivers, if you guys follow Andrew Rivers at all, he's a comedian buddy of mine. He made me internet famous as bomb shelter guy in that one viral bit from his comedy special. But he likes to remind me that I was way off by a factor of tens of thousands in my initial estimates for what the COVID body count was going to be. I like to remind him that the jury is still out of how many of those people died with COVID rather than of COVID. But he's right. He was right. I was off, and I have to own it. But that's the good thing about these videos. That's a good thing about Facebook memories feature, is that you can go back and just go, okay, yeah, I was great. Or, dude, fuck, I was so wrong. But either way, you got to own it. And that is the difference between folks like us. And I'm not just speaking for myself, but I think for a lot of y'all, because I know most of y'all's character. Even just from our limited interaction, the guys who are just friends of mine online, the ones who are friends of mine in real life, I know your character from our interactions. And I know that you are the kind of people that when you fuck up, you own it. That is the mark of a self-actualized person, is to be able to own their fucking mistakes. And that's what separates us from the people that we are at odds with right now at this moment. So anyway, I'm going to step down off of that soapbox real quick and give a couple of quick sponsor shout outs, because those guys are, first of all, beloved, and second of all, necessary to the program. First and foremost, always to one of my oldest and dearest friends, Roman, and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Allie, and Roxy, and a bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Spectacular watercolor work that Roman is doing now. Plus, you've got the testosterone-driven commentary. Beautiful naked women, testosterone-driven commentary. What the fuck is there not to like? How could I not be a fan of that? And, of course, it doesn't hurt that Roman is also one of my oldest and dearest friends. So thank you to the folks from opiumtales.com for being on board. And, of course, Casey and Dusty Tellison from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest, period, bar none, fucking done. There is no more argument. Period. That's it. It's done. They are back with the excellent point. Excellent point, Brother James. Excellent point. The Viking brothers are back with the long ship, the big smoker truck. They're setting up an American Gun and Pawn every Thursday. They sell from 11 o'clock until they run out, and they always run out. And it does them every week. They bring more. It's like, okay, well, we ran out. Like, we're going to bring another, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, whatever. And guys, be patient with them, because they have kept the price fluctuations as minimal as possible, given what the market is right now. They are the ones that take care of us. So get out there and take care of them. Period. End of statement. One of the few powers that we still have as individuals and as citizens in the United States is to be able to vote with our dollar. One of the things, and I have a little essay that I'm going to be posting here in probably a week or so. I'm on the downside. When I say downside, I'm on the backside. The I'm past the midpoint and on the downside of this particular contract and this thing that I'm working with here in this little town in Central Oregon. Um, G Dub, hit me with a personal message, buddy. Hit me with a personal message. We'll talk about it. Um, I'm on the downside of this contract right now, and uh, I I'm really sort of got a bit of anxiety about it because this is this place. Here's how we arrived here. My brain gets a little tangential. I love about this town the fact that everybody takes care of everybody within the town. They support local businesses, they support each other, they support their community and their neighbors, and they know their neighbors. This is America to me. This little town in Oregon has done so much for me in the sense of healing from a lot of things that I came here to heal from, in reinvigorating my enthusiasm for the American model and for the American citizen. Uh, it's been a really good experience. I'm on the downside of that. I'm not going to lament that too much. What I'm saying is I want to bring it back to Casey and Dusty and all of the people that you know who have local businesses, who have independently owned small businesses. Get out there and fucking support them, man. Get out there and support them. We have got to take care of each other. Corporations, you know, it's amazing these people think of themselves as the fucking resistance when in fact all of the corporations that they used to lament and hate on constantly are playing entirely to their fucking politics now. You're not resisting shit. You are the machine, right? If we are going to not even declare ourselves the resistance, but if we're going to behave like some sort of resistance, we need to do what is no less than a revolutionary act in this day and age. And that is not to support these people who dude, they hate you. Okay. Just go ahead and get your head around that fact. They fucking hate us. Everything that we fucking represent, we are an anathema to them. And their entire thought seems to be, well, you can't go anywhere else, so just shut up and spend the fucking money on our sugar water or our fucking, bullshit, unhealthy food, whatever. And people do it out of convenience. And people do it because, it might cost them a little less. Go ahead and pay that money, man. Go ahead and pay that money because the little bit extra you're paying is worth it to take care of a local business, to take care of a neighbor, to take care of a fellow citizen, and to take care more or less of your own fucking soul when you think about it, man. I mean, Judas sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver. How much is your fucking conscience worth? Ask yourself. I mean, is that a little over the top? Yeah, but not much, especially with what we're heading into now. So it's just things worth thinking about. All right, guys, before we jump into all of the bullet points that I've got lined up across the top of my production screen here, and keep in mind, man, this whole operation, I mean it when I say I'm just a crane operator with some fucking opinions. I don't have a producer here. I don't, I don't pre-record any of this stuff. Well, for the sake of you guys that are watching the replay, but I run live with it, man. I've got this camera, I've got this microphone, I've got that little, JBL speaker back in the back to run there's no mixer, there's no nothing. It's just me with a laptop and some gear and a crane operator with some fucking opinions, man. But apparently you guys are digging it, and I love the fact that you're here and that I feel like it's like finding your tribe when you think about it. And that's going to be crucial moving forward. You'll see what I'm getting to when I get to some of these bullet points that I've got here listed across the top of my production screen today, as far as the importance of finding those like minds and those kindred spirits and finding your tribe moving forward, man, because I don't do black pills around here. We are winning. We are past the tipping point. But don't think that just because we're winning, we're past the tipping point that that we don't still have plenty of potentially very, very ugly shit to go through. So now is the time. Now is the time to cleave to those people who are those like minds and those kindred spirits. And I feel like I found my tribe here. And fuck, I love you guys. I spend Sundays with family, and I'm here. Enough said. I love you, brother. I really, really do. I will know. By the way, on the salsa address tip, I will know something here within the next couple of weeks. As I said, I am on the downside of this, and I may be moving to another project very, very soon. But I got to get some confirmation on that. As soon as I know, brother James, you will know, and that lovely wife of yours, Nelda, and that total godhead freaking salsa will be in the pipeline, and I'm going to be a very, very happy boy. If you could have seen, man, and James passed this along to Nelda if she is watching. Fucking when I brought that, when I arrived in Spokane, it was, and you, man, these I can't even begin to tell you these giant fucking jars of this amazing salsa that brother James gifted me with on the way out of Texas, and Aaron, he looked at it and he was like, oh, okay. And then he tried it, and Aaron was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I've been telling him. I was like, that's what I tried to tell you, man. So, yeah, we are looking forward to round 2. Nelda is putting it up as we speak. She's listening. Outstanding, man. Outstanding. That's what I love, man. The miracles of the internet, the miracles of modern technology. We're all just here, man. We're all just here. We're sitting around the table. We're having some coffee or some, caffeinated lemonade. Again, I just came back over the pass from Portland. Got my battle bottle here. Again, these guys, Iron Infidel does not sponsor the program, but this battle bottle is just tits. As a traveling thermos, you got a little key clip here, and you got a spot for your wallet, and you got a spot for your phone, and you got some Powell's webbing here. I could probably work a knife onto this if I needed to. But in Portland, there is a local chain. You guys know about my caffeinated lemonade. There's a local chain out there that sells from like local craftsman beverage producers. The place is called Plaid Pantry. It's in the PDX. Oh my God, yeah, Ryan, we can't leave you out on that. Since we're having the roundtable dinner discussion, Ryan Jenkins, I want this stated for the record. Beyond being my brother in every sense of the word, makes the best goddamned iced tea on the planet. I put that out in front of anyone, and I will defend that statement with my fucking life. Whenever I passed through Houston last week, and I wonder sometimes if he feels like I'm being a bit of an ingrate for the hospitality, because I hit and I give the obligatory hugs, and then I'm like straight to the fucking fridge. Like, where's the tea? Oh, really? You just show up for the tea? No, I don't just show up for the tea, but it's a big fucking bonus, asshole. Wow, I've just totally, I've totally lost the plot. Yeah, so coming back over from Portland, one of the small local producers, I cannot think of the name of it, but they make you guys know me and ginger, and they make a ginger lemonade. It's like a ginger lemonade and then like a ginger lemonade yerba mate tea, which, yerba mate is not quite the coffee boost, but it's a nice little jump, and it's a ginger lemonade with the yerba mate. And so I pick those up, and I throw some ice in the battle bottle, and I put about 2 bottles of that in here, and I throw a little of my caffeine packet in just to get the boost, and that's where we're at. All right. So first segment that we're going to get into, you guys already know where we're headed. See if I can get the sound effect to work properly. It is Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That is correct, boys and girls. Brother Ryan Jenkins, in the same sense that Joey is the sultan of sarcasm, Ryan is the prime minister of all things esoteric and obscure. One of the things that we have always bonded over is the fact that we are both repositories of useless information. Repositories. From that book suppository building, sir. But every week, every week, Ryan throws out, and we have discussions. Usually it stems from the phone call that we had after the previous week's sermon, and we'll be talking about some obscure stuff. Sometimes it's historical, sometimes it's philosophical, sometimes it's purely esoteric, sometimes it's conspiratorial. This one we're going historical, but in a hidden history sort of way. Now it seems that around the year 1500, a certain Ottoman Turk admiral, and I did get, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name right, Hagil Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri. Yeah, Hagil Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri. But he's better known to the world as Piri Reis. Piri Rey. This gentleman, by hook or by crook, again, admiral in the Turkish Navy, and created a map that basically, again, if you believe the official story, if you believe the official accounts, historians differ in their explanation, or if they even assign it authenticity. But this map was complete in a way that we would not see from maps again until almost a century after the discovery of what we now know as the New World. In fact, the Piri Reis map details the coast of Antarctica. Okay, ponder that. Let me remind you, 1513. That is that's the best estimate of when it was actually drawn, and it was drawn. Now you'll love this too. It was drawn on the skin of a fucking gazelle. Okay, as if if it had been done on some stretched parchment or any kind of anything. No, I mean gazelle skin is what this map was created on. But again, it had the entire detailed and, for the time, unbelievably accurate depiction of the entire coast of what would later be known as the New World. But I'm talking like all the way around backside. Now we all know it was 1492 when Columbus and then of course you had Magellan and all the Portuguese explorers and things like this. But we're talking about details of areas of the world that had not been explored up to and including Antarctica, which was depicted without a polar ice cap, but was nevertheless every little nook and cranny, every inlet, every landmass that is covered with the ice shelf was mapped out and fucking detailed. And historians can't really come up with a way that he would have been able to do this. In the same sense that like the Nazca lines and things like that are basically put together in a way that could only be viewed from like overhead. We're talking about these sorts of like this. It's a cartographic anomaly. Cartographic, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. But in the art and science of cartography and map making, it's, to quote a soundbite from Highlander, it would be like discovering a 747 100 years before the Wright brothers ever flew. And it's heavy to think about things like that. This is a rabbit hole in and of itself. Again, the Piri Reis map, that's your rabbit hole for the week. But when you go down that rabbit hole, it's going to lead you into a lot of other temporal anomalies with regard to depictions of the world that, to the best of our knowledge, had not been explored yet, and that we did not have the technology to map at such a thorough fucking level. So it's definitely one that's going to bake your noodle a little bit. Again, let me spell this out for you. Pirireis, Piri Reis map. They have, cartographers speculate, but it's easier for most cartography experts to dismiss it out of hand as a fraud rather than try to look into how it actually could have been done. But again, rabbit holes building on rabbit holes. You go a little bit further down, there are so many, there is so much evidence for the existence of advanced civilizations that preceded anything in the known world by centuries. And, I'm not going to, Atlantis, okay, that's the easy one, but I'm talking, established, established evidentiary facts that tend to indicate that these ancient civilizations had way higher technology than should have been available to them for the course of their intellectual and social and cultural development, in the same sense that this Piri map and the Nazca lines and some of the other things that could only be viewed from overhead when we didn't have the technology to view it from overhead, let alone from fucking stratospheric levels that would have been necessary to map out the entire fucking coast of Antarctica. It definitely will make you reconsider how much we know about our history as a species versus how much we would like to think that we know. And I tend to gravitate that at the end of the day, at the nicely played on Spoonerisms, Joey. I tend to gravitate towards the idea that at the end of the day, right? Thank you. And you know what? Thank you. And there's our rabbit hole for next week. And we'll discuss that as soon as I get done. And I get that phone call in. But I tend to gravitate to the idea that in the grand scheme of things, with regard to what we think we know about history, that in the final analysis, we know precisely shit about fuck. And at the end of the day, even our best estimates are nothing more than speculation. And that, of course, has a lot to do with my thoughts on conspiracy theory and hidden history and the tyranny of everybody knows. So it guides my worldview. Hopefully you'll be able to get something out of that. But Piri map, that is Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. And you guys jump down and follow that rabbit hole as deep as you feel comfortable. Again, I'm not your guru. I'm not your guide. I just put the sign up and I go, hey, check that out. And then Ryan and I fuel each other with, ridiculous amounts of caffeine and babble incoherently at each other for hours at a time while our respective old ladies just kind of watch the thing like a tennis match, and it's a good time. So that the Piri map, that is Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. Another sip of the liquid enthusiasm. And we're going to jump right into the bullet points. Clip that. Okay, so first thing you notice in the intro, vaccine injuries. And I want to get this one out of the way first because, again, we've already done it, back in the early days of this when it was the COVID cast. It's already been beaten to death. Everybody here already knows where I stand on it. Everybody here pretty much stands more or less in the same basic zone. But the vaccine injury thing, those of us who have vehemently and outspokenly defied the vaccine protocols, the vaccine mandates, we've been shaking our fist at the sky, that lone voice in the fucking wilderness saying, hey man, this is all going to come back to haunt us, and it's going to come back to haunt us in a very, very bad fucking way. Well, the data dumps from Pfizer, if you guys have been following these, keep in mind, Pfizer initially, and again, nothing says trust the science like wanting to hide your fucking test results away, but Pfizer initially filed to keep all of their testing data secret for 75 years. Look that up. They wanted to keep all of it secret for 75 fucking years, and a federal judge said, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to release it. Okay, we're going to release it a little bit at a time. And in keeping with typical media procedures, every time one of these data dumps comes up, there is a convenient distraction. But what we have found out so far with these data dumps, and again, this is all irrefutable now. It's the same stuff we've been telling you from that some of us have been screaming at you about from the beginning, but now it's all irrefutable and it's right there in Pfizer's own first, the efficacy. We went from 95 being told it was 95% efficacious. Efficacious is my college word. I got like 3 of those. told that it was 95% efficacious. And then, as it turns out, by their own test results, and again, people parse this stuff, and people, when you get the fact checkers in there, well, technically, if we allow for this, and but go read the information yourself. It's posted online in its entirety. Come to your own conclusions. We went from 95% efficacy to 12% efficacy. We went from perfectly safe for pregnant women to where a substantial number of women had spontaneous miscarriages. And now all of these things are coming out, and it's just sort of steamrolling. Well, Rogan caught 9 miles of grief for treating himself with ivermectin and any of the other unconventional treatments that he was using. He caught 9 miles of grief for it. And he and Russell Brand have been on a tear trying to educate people. It's like, look, dude, I'm not telling you anything. I want you to go and read the Pfizer reports, read what's right there in their own fucking data that they wanted to suppress for 75 years. Read it. It's right there in their own fucking reports. And again, nobody pays attention. But people started paying attention this week because Justin Bieber, full disclosure, I've never heard a single track that Justin Bieber has done. In fact, it's probably unfair for me to hate on the guy. It really is. I mean, he could be a really, really talented kid. I've never heard a fucking track he's ever done. Not once in my adult life. The only thing that I have as a legit reason to hate on him for on a personal level is that he's a Floyd Mayweather fan. I mean, but beyond that, it's probably unfair for me to judge the guy. He may be perfectly cool. He may be super intelligent. He may be incredibly talented. I just don't give a fuck. I just haven't, because he's Justin fucking Bieber and I don't care. But this week, it turns out he's got a bit of a Stallone thing going on. And I shouldn't make fun of that either, because there are a lot of people out there with a similar injury, and his was not. Apparently, his was not a form of Bell's palsy. It's called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, and it has left entirely half of his face completely paralyzed. Now, Bell's palsy is a temporary and passing thing, and it's still no fucking joke. I remember, James, I don't know if you were down there that year, but I remember, this is way pre-vaccine, but you remember Coach Blauer had an incident where he suffered from some temporary Bell's palsy, and he did the entire combatives camp with like half of his face paralyzed, which impressed the shit out of me, by the way. But you could tell that was like it was a struggle. And now Bieber's been afflicted with it. Well, Bieber, I don't care about him, but apparently millions and millions of people do. He's got a hell of a fan base, but this comes after his wife. And again, this is not something that I follow, so I'm ripping this straight off the AP news feed and from Reuters. But apparently his old lady also got the jab and the boost, and they made a big production out of it, as most celebrities did. Yeah, we got to get out there, and you got to get boosted. You got to get the vaccine, bro, because it's people are getting the vaccine, keep yourself safe. And now it's come back to bite both of them in the ass, because his old lady had a fucking stroke. So yeah, right. That is the one I couldn't remember if it was that one or the year after. I couldn't remember because, I've taken some head trauma and, but yeah, that's when I was down there for the ballistic microfights part of the, yes, I remember now. Anyway, so Bieber's old lady had a stroke. Half of Bieber's face is paralyzed now. He's the first prominent celeb to come out with a vaccine injury. And of course, immediately it starts trending on Twitter. Now, by the end of the day, Twitter had pulled it as a trend. Because it stopped trending? No, because that's what Twitter does. Anytime something starts violating the fucking narrative, because Elon hasn't taken over yet. but yeah, it went to number 8 in the Twitter trends. And if you go to Twitter and you look at the feed, some of you guys joined Twitter exclusively to catch me when I was banned from Facebook. So you've got that Twitter account floating around. Go pay it a visit if you haven't been there for a while. But a lot of people are fucking talking about it. The mainstream media is not. And I think we are approaching we're approaching a juncture right now where, and this is the thing about the distractions. This is the thing about all of the media narratives and the distractions that are thrown up. The noise. The noise. The signal is right, and again, that's the directive. Be the signal, not the noise. The signal is, even if you do not believe, right, that Pfizer intentionally manipulated this or intentionally held that. And even if you do not believe that the government works in line with big pharma to insulate them from repercussions from the side effects of their products, and even if you do not believe that money protects money and money protects power, it's come to a point now where even the most devout grazer has to look and go, okay, something's going on here. And Bieber just happened to be that fucking noise. That happened to be that signal this time around. They cut through the noise. It's just like, oh no, wild conspiracy theory, bunch of rubes that shop at Walmart and blah, 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 blah. Oh, big celebrity. And people get focused. Well, if that's what it takes, I'm going to call it a fucking win. But it's definitely got people talking about it. Now, you believe what you want to believe. Again, I'm not your guru. I have made no bones about where I stand on the entire situation. I know a lot of you share that sentiment. But what was that? Eric Clapton got a vaccine injury, and rather than getting sympathy, he got death threats. I'm not shocked. We are in a really, really bizarre place with this one. This is the first time, at least in my adult life, that I've ever seen almost religious gravity accorded not just to a single corporation, but to a consumer product. As in, these people fight to protect that narrative. And the only sense that I can make out of it is they are doing it as much to protect themselves. Because in order for them to admit what's right there in front of them, in order for them to admit the severity and the enormity and the ubiquity, see, there's 3 more of my college words, so now I'm all out, of all of these vaccine side effects and injuries. In order for them to do that, it would do wonders for their intellectual honesty. It would do wonders for their integrity. But it would also require admitting that they are wrong. It would also require admitting that they not only were misled, but thumped their chest about being on the right side while being misled. You're not going to get that. You're just not going to get that out of most people. I do notice that people don't really pop off about how fucking vaxxed they are anymore in their social media. I've noticed a big drop off in that. Again, just the insanity of it, just the outright insanity of it. It's like, yes, I got the very disease that I took not 1, not 2, but 4 jabs to be vaccinated from. I got the disease anyway, but thank God I was vaxxed and boosted, or it would have been so much worse. My old lady got pregnant because the condom was defective, but thank God for Trojan, or it could have been twins. Just the most. Where the fuck do these people come from? Anyway, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but it's worth taking a peek at because that's going to lead me into my next bullet point. Vaccine injuries. Go to Google and enter vaccine injuries trends on Twitter. You have to do that specifically because if you just put vaccine injuries trends, right? Google, their algorithm, you pull on Twitter onto the back of that and just put vaccine injuries trends. It will tell you obscure incidents involving vaccine injuries, anything but the COVID vaccine, dating back all the way to like the earliest days of vaccination, anything to avoid talking about the current events. So you have to phrase it very specifically. Vaccine injuries trends on Twitter. Go to Google, enter that. It'll pull you up and it'll take you to Twitter, and you can roll through and look for yourself. People are talking about it. And when people start talking, you've heard me say it before. That's the way things change. Laws don't really change anything. Wars change things. But the most effective way to topple governments, the most effective way to topple false ideologies, the most effective way to topple baseless religions, the most efficient way to topple any of these things is talk. Just talk. 1 million small conversations between you and I and you and the next guy and that guy and his 2 other friends. That's how things take root. Ideas. You can have, quote from old brother, where art thou? We're done shaking hands. We're mass communicating. Yeah, okay, you can do that. Social media, television, you can do all these things, but nothing. It's a slow process. Okay. Caveat, it is a slow process, but no process is more effective than 1 million small conversations, just like the one we're having now, just like the one you have with your Uber driver, just like you have with the gas station attendant, for instance. There's an Arco that I stop at every time I come back across the pass from PDX, and it's always on a Sunday when I'm coming back across, and it's always the same guy that works there on a Sunday. He's got a speaker that he keeps out there because he can't stand the fucking country music they play at the Arco. So he's got one of those JBL speakers out there, and he's cranking Zeppelin or Crew or some kind of rock stuff. What's that? Wore a bucket of pastry. Damn it, Ryan. Guys out there every Sunday, he's got his speaker out there, and we, while I'm filling up, always have just like a short conversation. 1,000,001 conversations like that. You start getting a feel for where people really are. Again, signal versus noise. The noise will tell you what the media is telling you right now. It's like, everybody's down with the resistance, and your opinion is in the, and then you talk to people, and that's when you get the signal. Talking to people. Because when you're talking to people, it's a coin toss. When you're talking to people on social media, particularly if you're on the left, you have already isolated yourself within your own little echo chamber. Jonathan Haidt, I don't know if you guys have followed Haidt's work at all, but you should. To calm people talking over. Yes, exactly what I'm saying, Brother James. Exactly what I'm saying. Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. Look into Jonathan Haidt's work. He has done tons of research, and no matter how many times he repeats the experiment, it always comes to the same conclusion. 2 very important works that you don't want to look into from Haidt. The one thing that he found was that people who self-identify as conservatives get about 60% of their news from conservative outlets and about 40% of their news from liberal outlets. People who identify as independents, self-identify as independents, it's the exact opposite. They get about 40% of their news from conservative sources, 60% from liberal sources. People who self-identified as liberals, 80% of their news coming from liberal sources. 80%. Another experiment that Haidt did was he had people answer the question in the way that they felt someone else from a different ideology would answer it. In other words, he had the conservatives answer, asked a specific set of questions, and had the conservatives answer those questions, A, like you felt like a libertarian or independent would, and B, like a liberal or a leftist would. And then he asked the leftists to do the same thing with conservatives and libertarians. He asked libertarians to be right. And what he found, no matter how many times he ran the experiment, was that conservatives um, pretty much across the board, and libertarians and independents all answered the questions fairly exactly the way a liberal would have, a true classic liberal would have for the specific questions. But when he asked the liberals to answer the questions, when asked to answer it the way they felt like a conservative would answer it, they answered it like a fascist. When asked to answer how an independent would answer that same question, they answered like a sociopath. Again, you can look up his work and come to your own conclusions on that. But again, if we're talking echo chambers, when you're having these conversations, like Brother James was just saying, the two people talking calmly over coffee, if that's a stranger that you're talking to at the coffee shop, it's a coin toss. Maybe this guy shares your beliefs, maybe he doesn't. You know, maybe a little likely or a little less likely, depending on where you are, what city, what part of town, part of the country. But it's a coin toss. It's random. You're having a discussion. What you're not doing is going to an Antifa coffee club and only talking to the people that you know are going to share your beliefs on things. And it's a bad habit that the left has gotten into, and I've seen elements on the right starting to get into that habit. Resist the urge. I realize that there is no dialogue to be had with extreme leftists anymore. I'm fully aware of that. But resist the urge to specifically isolate yourself from the ideology. Here's a little thought exercise, and I'm going to have everybody do this. It'll hurt, okay? Some of you, it'll hurt a little bit, but I do it every morning when I'm on my way to work. I listen to NPR. Yeah, I listen to NPR so I can hear the party line, so I can hear the news in the morning. For at least one news interaction over the course of any day. If I turn on the news at all, I am obligated, due to a promise that I made to myself, to watch at least some CNN and MSNBC. I try to avoid mainstream news altogether, particularly now with the J6 hearings going on and everything like that. But as a thought exercise, you need to be exposed. You need to have those beliefs challenged. Go out of your way, because the last thing you want is to find yourself in the echo chamber that the left has pulled itself into. It will be doing us all a disservice. We got to keep our brains open. We got to keep our brains sharp. And, you know, even Sun Tzu, know your enemy, right? The commissar's coffee clutch. Let me see. I hate their taste in music. Say you're a fan. All right. So, where the fuck was I going with that? So you want those beliefs challenged. You want to make sure that the narrative is constantly being challenged, no matter how you feel about this vaccine issue. The mountain of empirical evidence that something, and again, I've heard some really, really crazy takes on every major event that has conspiratorial elements to the history of it, whether it's Oklahoma City or 9/11 or Waco or any of those things. I've heard some really, really whacked out fucking ideas, and I've heard some really, really whacked out shit, from the anti-vaccine crowd, the microchip and the microchip and the fucking hypodermic stuff, and we're going to be tracking, some of this stuff is just out there, man, and there may be people listening to this that go, dude, I totally believe that, bro. I totally believe that. I got like the pictures, man. The microchips real tiny. You put them in the thing, they fucking track. Dude, okay, cool. Good, Viac on DS, bro. Please. I just happen to think that I'm more of an Occam's razor kind of guy, which is it makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense to follow something that requires the least amount of assumptions. In any case, no matter how you feel about it, the mountain of empirical evidence right now is to the point where you have to admit that the official narrative is bullshit. You know, it was the same thing with 9/11. You know, I don't think that I don't think that the jets on 9/11 were fucking remote controlled. You know, I don't believe that they downloaded that they landed them and got everybody off the Shanksville flight and crashed that into a fucking field, and that all of the passengers from all the planes were on the Shanksville flight and it all fucking incinerated so they could some stuff is just way the fuck out there. But if you're going to tell me that the official narrative is 100% correct and beyond comprehension, you're a fucking moron. 2 words, building 7. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Same thing with the vax. You don't have to believe the more extreme things, but to sit there and deny that it's gotten to a point where you have to at least give some consideration that maybe, just maybe, they haven't told us the whole truth. You are acting purely as a dogmatic ideologue and a fawning, faithful religious nut at this fucking point. There's just too much. One more bullet point that I wanted to get into before we get into some of the really, really important stuff here is the fact that the CDC has finally acknowledged sudden adult death syndrome. The CDC has finally acknowledged that because apparently, sometimes starting around, like the late part of 2020 going into 2021, suddenly there were exponential, and when I say exponential, I mean fucking exponential, to the tunes of hundreds of percent, and in some cases thousands of percent exponentiations in youth myocarditis, brain swelling, other heart conditions among the young and otherwise healthy, increases in hepatic infections, increases in brain swelling, recurrences of cancer that have been in remission, neurological side effects, including aphasia. All of a sudden, all of those things fucking spiked. Of course, there was the thing of all the soccer players in Europe that were just dropping dead of heart attacks in the middle of the fucking field. Otherwise, healthy, conditioned fucking athletes. And now it has become such a thing that the CDC had to finally give it a name: sudden adult death syndrome. Now they're going to hem and haw, and you can expect plenty more of that. It's all going to be more smoke and mirrors, but they finally had to fucking acknowledge it. Now, keep in mind, this is the same CDC that just 2 weeks ago, when they were trying to sell us on the scare of fucking monkeypox on their own website, and I posted this to my fan page, on their very own website, they were like, no, it's barely transmissible by aerosol. It's not considered airborne. You have to have fluid contact or extremely close proximity contact for a long fucking duration. All these things. That's how they listed it on their own fucking website. And yet, the very same day, the CDC director came out and said that the main thing we need to do about monkeypox is have everybody mask up again. At this point, there is no rational human being with 2 brain cells to rub together that can say that the official narrative is beyond question anymore. You may choose to believe it. Again, vaya con Dios, do your own homework, come to your own conclusions. You may choose to believe it. But to say they could fire me but not make me lie, bang. And James, this is why we are brothers. Yes, this is why we are brothers. Because, when, in spite my desire for a silverback currency, I'm not selling my soul for 30 pieces of it. So there's that. So yeah, like minds, kindred spirits on that front. You have to admit that something is amiss. Something is amiss. You're not getting the full. You're just not. Now, how much of that you want to choose to believe is true or choose to believe is a lie, that's going to be entirely up to you. With your own research and coming to your own fucking conclusions. But again, and I don't know the original source of the quote, but I've gotten tons of mileage out of it. It's posted on my personal page and my fan page. The truth does not need a law to protect it. When someone tells you that anything is beyond question, when you are not allowed to question something, no matter how unpopular. If they are saying, damn it, Ryan, different rabbit hole. If they are saying to you, you are not allowed to speak about this, that says to me that you need to be talking about it. And I don't care. I don't care what bent it's coming from, how seemingly obvious. I would never try to shut up a flat earther. I think they're fucking retarded, but I would never say that this is settled science and you are not allowed to talk about this anymore. Holocaust revisionists, I would never support or endorse. And, and that's a touchy subject for a lot of fucking folks. But I would never stand by and let somebody say that you cannot express those ideas or call into question, the figures thereof, name it. Pedophilia as a legitimate sexuality. Well, I think that on its face, we all can look at that and just go, no, that's not acceptable. But here's the thing about being principled. I would never support a law that made it illegal for someone to make that case. As morally reprehensible, as despicably abhorrent, as prima facie absurd and debased and degenerate and dehumanized as such a thing is, I am still not okay with a law forbidding talking about it. This is what it is to be a free speech absolutist. Good Lord, how many of my college words did I squeeze in there? Because I only got like 3 of those. I think I'm all out now. Anyway, so just wanted to get into that. That's another one from the We Are Winning. But yeah, sudden adult death syndrome. And this is what they said. Sudden adult death syndrome, also known as SADS, occurs when a person under the age of 40 years old suffers a sudden death without a known cause after an autopsy and toxicology screen. And that's about as far as they went with it. They're not discussing the uptick. They're not discussing the statistical exponentiation, the spike of an increase, and all the news stories. When I shift to image search, the Mirror, the Daily Mirror in London, and some of the other news sources, the Daily Mail, they keep describing this uptick, when they do talk about it at all, as a medical mystery. I can't imagine. Now, correlation does not equal causation. I am not, because I'm not a medical professional, I am not going to speak with that kind of authority and say to you, this is the reason why all these things are happening. But what I not only am not okay with, but will not do myself, is to suggest to you that it is not okay to even call it into question. And that is exactly what social media and big tech, and if they had their way, the government's Ministry of Truth, they would have forbidden talking about it. Anytime someone tells you that you can't discuss that, that is exactly what you should be fucking discussing. Never, ever lose sight of that. Here's another example. Something that we are allowed to discuss. Not only are we allowed to discuss it, but we are compelled to discuss it because we've been beaten over the head with it for the entire fucking week on every single media network. Every single major network, except for Fox News. That's not giving Fox a pass. They are controlled opposition. The only guy I give two flying fucks at a rolling donut over there is Tucker. And even Tucker has his limits with spine and balls because he still hasn't discussed the 2,000 Mules yet. Point being, we have been beaten over the head with the January 6th thing all fucking week. Now, if you are familiar with propaganda and the way that these things work, if you are familiar with Pravda and TASS during the Soviet era and the way that the Soviets used that to control public opinion, if you are familiar with Joseph Goebbels and his work with the Third Reich, Leni Riefenstahl, another one, and her work as a filmmaker. Yeah, insurrection, which odd because that's the first time in the first insurrection in the history of the world where everybody showed up unarmed and they waited for the guards to open the gates to fucking let them in. Right there we could end the discussion, with regard to using the I word. We could just end the discussion right there and probably should. Insurrection, really? Last I heard, there were between 100,000 and 250,000 boots on the ground. Not a single one of them were armed. If 250,000 hardcore Trump supporters, QAnon, right-wing extremists, 3%, 250,000 of people with that political bent would have shown up with forks, they could have taken the fucking Capitol. So spare me how it was an existential threat and the biggest challenge or blow to our democracy. So go fuck yourself, please. Please. But we're going to get into that and we're going to elaborate on it a little bit. We've been beaten over the head with it because it is exactly as I described it. It is it's a propaganda push. They got former television execs, former television producers, top of the line guys to put this thing together and to execute it in the sense that the viewing audience at home would come off like the Watergate hearings or any of these other things. Not so much the September 11th hearings because there wasn't a whole lot of coverage of the September 11th hearings because, oopsie, there's stuff we don't want to talk about. But they wanted it presented as if we are doing this as a public service. Ashley Babbitt, yeah, I caught that earlier, Joe. It was brilliant. They're doing it as a public service. They want you informed, you see. The only problem is the American public is sort of distracted right now by, the fact that they can't afford food, or the fact that they can't find formula for their babies, or the fact that the border is wide the fuck open, the fact that the inflation rate has hit the biggest spike in 40 plus years, ad infinitum. There's too much other stuff. Nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares. I mean, initially, nobody really cared about this. Insurrection, nobody then except the fawning faithful, and the terminally ignorant and the Rachel Maddow viewers. But I repeat myself, nobody bought it. It's like, yes, okay, that was, and this is the difference. And we're going to get into this because this entire bullet point is about the difference between the difference in framing and presentation between quote unquote peaceful protests and insurrections. It's all of it coming down to propaganda, media framing, the way that they offer the picture while cleverly hiding parts of it. Even then, nobody bought it. Nobody fucking bought it. Except for the fawning faithful. Anyone with two, independence, anyone with two brain cells to rub together. They had just witnessed an entire year of cities on fire. And a guy with a Viking hat and some silly fucking face paint standing at Nancy Pelosi's podium, that is an existential threat to democracy. Go fuck yourself. Right? You can dress it up any way that you want to dress it up, but seriously, nobody bought that. Nobody fucking bought that. And here's the difference between the teams. If you'll indulge me for a minute on the political team sports thing, if you'll indulge me, the difference is everybody on the conservative side even the commentators, even OAN, even Newsmax, even Epic News, even Tucker Carlson, even Sean Hannity's fat hack ass, all of them on the conservative side said clearly and without equivocation that the people that entered the building, that forced their way into the building, the people that vandalized, the people that stole shit, the people that broke shit, the people that, not the ones that the security guards open the gates for and open the doors for and are on camera saying, we respect your peaceful protest, not those guys. But without exception, everyone on the right, from Newsmax to OAN to Tucker to Fox to you fucking name it, without exception, they said that the people that forced entry, people that vandalized, people that broke shit, people that assaulted cops were fucking criminals and needed to be prosecuted to the full extent of law. Not one prominent commentator on the right had anything but that to say. You cross the line, commit violent acts against police officers, you're a fucking criminal and a scumbag. You go to jail. You break in and vandalize a federal government building, you go to fucking jail. That's the way that it works. Not in Portland, obviously, but we'll get to that in a minute. That is the difference. That has always been the difference. There was no equivocation. There was no justification. There is perspective checks and saying, okay, if this, then that, and this compared to this is less than this, you do that. But the whole, idea of trying to say, no, they were 100% justified. Even the people that stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop, even the people that fucking, busted the windows out, they were 100% justified in what they did. You're not going to hear that. You're certainly not going to hear it from me. And you certainly didn't hear it from any prominent conservative commentators. At least none that have any legitimacy or intellectual honesty. They flat out will fucking tell you, you fucked up. You fucked up, you're going to jail. That's not how it works. Contrast that with the way that the riots of 2020 played out in the left-wing media and how these things were justified. I want you to take a look, because what it is, we've talked at length on this program before about gaslighting. You tell people, if you see this, well, you must be crazy. I mean, you're saying it and you're presenting it, but when I look at it and say, wow, that is this thing, you tell me that I'm insane. And then you show it to me again. And I say, wow, that still is that thing, and you tell me I'm insane. Don't fucking gaslight me, man. I'd rather you patronize me than fucking gaslight me. Gaslighting is it's not just insulting to my intelligence. You can be patronizing, thinking that you're doing the right thing. You can actually be doing the right thing and saying the right thing and come off as patronizing. When you go to gaslight me, that's deliberate. You know exactly what the fuck you're doing. The big one that's in the news right now is the demographic replacement theory, right? There's some high-end gaslighting. And again, to even discuss this, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're indulging in conspiracy theories. Okay, well, the whole principle behind the demographic replacement thing is that, and when it's demographics, it's not just racial demographics. Let me point that out. It's also cultural demographics, is that white, Christian, cisgendered males are being displaced out of their political acumen, out of their political power, by replacing them demographically with immigrants from other races, immigrants from other cultures, immigrants from other countries, by replacing them in positions of power with people who do not share any of their cultural values. And the theory holds that it is being done deliberately with intent. Now, when you say that, where the hell would they ever gotten such a crazy fucking idea? Well, because for the last at least 6 years and longer than that. I say dating all the way back to 1965, everyone on the left has essentially been bragging about it. There are articles in the New York Times titled, "We Can Replace Them." Maddow and a number of other commentators at MSNBC, they will do a story about how the demographic trends are replacing white cisgendered males and moving them out of their political power, and how this is a good thing moving forward. They brag about it on the wall at Southern Poverty Law Center. Mark Potok, cocksucker. Mark Potok has a wall, has a piece of paper in the wall just above his desk, and you look at it, and it is the percentages of straight white Christian males as a percentage of the total population and as a percentage of the voting population, and it's year by year updated, that we get smaller and smaller and smaller. And Potok has gone out of his way to say what a great thing that is. Joe Biden, your very own fucking president, right? On video, that whites are a minority, we're going to continue to be pushed out, and that this is a good thing, and I want it to keep happening. You can find that video on YouTube. But when I point this out, I am indulging in conspiracy theories, and I am being a racist and a bigot. Because this is crazy that we would be trying to fucking replace them. They want to equate me with the Tiki Torch guys from fucking Charlottesville. All we are responding to is what you're telling us. You're telling us that you have every intent to replace us, and we go, wow, you're going to try to fucking replace us. We don't dig that. And they go, try to replace you? What kind of crazy shit is that? That's the gaslighting that I'm talking about. On a lower level, with regard to January 6th, and I say, again, I'm tying the two together like this because the big push now, and we're hearing it during the committee hearings, is that there is a threat of, and this is the new buzzword, guys, look out for it, white Christian nationalism. White Christian nationalism, yes. Existential threat to democracy. Again, go back and watch the hearings. They say it over and over and over again. It's the new buzzword. Why are they doing this? Well, they're trying to fold us all in. They are, James, I just got that picture. Wow. Thank you. Oh my God, I want to pull that down and show everybody. Stay on message, Bart. Stay on message. White Christian nationalists, that's the new buzzword. Everything ties back in, and it's all for the sake of creating a narrative. And this entire production on January 6th is to create that boogeyman. To create the boogeyman, and then to expand their narrative on what constitutes the boogeyman. At first, it was deplorables, and then it's MAGA idiots, and then desperate clingers, and people who feel like, oh dude, SPLC is beyond a hate group. They are beyond a hate group, man. They are the most diabolical group of fucking self-indulgent, sanctimonious goddamn charlatans. And the fact that mainstream news sources still have represented, even after Morris Dees got his ass bounced out, for all the sexual harassment allegations and all the other depraved shit that fucker was into. He finally gets bounced out. But Potok, they still have Potok on, and they describe him as a subject matter expert in extremism. He's a charlatan. His entire existence, the existence of the SPLC, depends on finding Nazis under every fucking bed, even where none exist. You want to know how to wind up on an SPLC list on their fucking hate watch? Have a P.O. box and the word white. That's really about all it fucking takes. And they will post you up on a big fucking map of nothing. Oh, bro, we're getting there. We're getting there, Ryan. Fuck. In fact, let's go there now. Since you brought it up. What just happened just down the road from the BART bunker over in Coeur d'Alene yesterday. Demonstration where they all showed up, Patriot Front, again, Patriot Front, where they showed up in the back of a U-Haul. And when the local law enforcement pulled them out, they didn't take their masks down. They handcuffed them, left them there on their knees with the matching khakis and the matching shirts, and everybody's got athletic builds, and there's no fucking beer guts. If I didn't know better, I'd swear they all look like fucking federal agents and plans. They didn't even take their masks down. They They don't afford Antifa that kind of fucking courtesy, particularly in fucking Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Again, see, there, and I'm sure there are some people that are involved with the Patriot Front movement who are honest, faithful, true believers, just like any number of white nationalist organizations during the 1970s or 80s or 90s, where at one point, I believe during the 1980s, the FBI did an internal audit, and they found that out of their top 10 white nationalist groups that they were keeping tabs on, was that in 8 out of those 10, they had more FBI informants in the group than they had actual members. So do with that what you will. Slagging Patriot Front and how they are presented is not the same, to my view, as slagging the actual ideology itself. My position on racial politics is well known and well documented and needs neither justification nor apology. To say that these guys that they pulled out of the back of a U-Haul in Coeur d'Alene are almost without a doubt federal plants trying to further this narrative, that's just a statement of fact, or speculation rooted in fact. Says nothing about the ideology or any particular individual involved. Not calling anyone's personal integrity into question. Again, they're trying to wrap it all in and convince us that biggest existential threat to democracy is those scary white right-wing nationalists. The Southern Poverty Law Center, we were just talking about that a second ago, Brian, closely tied with the ADL, and I'm going to show this again from the intro. The Anti-Defamation League. Now, the SPLC is a lot more motivated to stretching the definition of white supremacists or right-wing extremists or any of those things. The Southern Poverty Law Center is way more inclined to bend the definition. But the ADL, definitely in the same ballpark. And again, this is year by year. The total number of killings, the total number of violent incidents rooted in ideology that resulted in killings, and talking specifically with regard to white supremacists or white right-wing extremists by any stripe. And that's everything from your casual Stormfront viewer to your Patriot Front advocate to the fucking Confederate Hammerskins. I mean, it runs the whole fucking gamut. And in calendar year 2021, this is the ADL's own fucking figures, okay? 26. More black people were killed in the George Floyd riots, and we're about to tie that back in with what this push is coming off on. Propaganda, even Goebbels said this, propaganda loses its power. I may be misquoting. I believe this is Goebbels. I could be wrong on that. Propaganda loses its power the minute one realizes what it is. That is why these attempts at gaslighting, that is why these attempts at pushing the narrative, that is why these attempts at censoring anyone who questions the narrative have become so fucking desperate. Real Clear Politics has an offshoot site called Real Clear Investigations. And This was originally posted in September of 2021 and was just this month revised and updated. RealClearInvestigations.com. And the article itself is the January 6th BLM riots comparison. The way that I arrived here, I had to get a little crafty with the Google algorithm because, again, look. So the first thing I entered in Google was January 6th BLM riots comparison. And the first 10 results were the NFL coach that got fined $100,000 for even stating any kind of comparison. And then another 9 results where there is no comparison. It's an unfair comparison. I had to go in and use the word statistics to jog with the algorithm to get what I was actually looking for. So, Real Clear Investigations, January 6th BLM riots comparison. They have a detailed table, and I'll spare you going over all of it, but just a quick little highlight reel. Summer of 2020. Again, let's look at the number of injured police officers and the lies that we continue to be told about January the 6th. Do you remember the classic cop that was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher? Totally wrong. Never happened, right? The 5 police who died in the incident, not a single police officer died in that. Not one, right? 5 have committed suicide since then. Here's a newsflash, Sparky. Suicide is not uncommon among police officers. James, I know you'll back me up on this. It's about as uncommon as divorce or anything else that kind of comes with the territory, and especially ones that are exposed to something or the other. So, again, no cops died. The property damage, it lasted I think the entire demonstration, counting the ruckus, lasted about 3.5 hours, as opposed to weeks. There were no fires. There were no homicides. The vandalism was laughable. But this is the highlight reel from Real Clear Investigations. The summer 2020 riots resulted in some 15 times more injuries in police officers, 23 times as many arrests, and estimated damages in dollar terms up to 1,300 times more costly than those of the Capitol riot. Now, you can dig deeper and find the exact numbers, the exact stats yourself. You can fact check me on that if you feel like this is bullshit. I encourage you to do so. I'm not a fucking guru. I'm just giving you what I got. 15 times more injured cops, 23 times as many arrests, estimated damages in dollar terms up to 1,300 times more costly than those of the Capitol riots. Dozens of accused Capitol rioters have been held in pretrial detention since then. They're still in jail. Some for as minimal offense as trespassing. They've been there for 18 months. And there are a number of allegations they are being mistreated. And guarantee you that they are. We'll get into that more in a minute. Summer 2020 riots, the vast majority of charges were dismissed. Not only were the majority dismissed, but I can tell you from here in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in PDX, no matter how you define insurrection, we're talking about Antifa maggots throwing firebombs at a federal courthouse, which they continued to do for months, plural, every single fucking night. DAs refused to prosecute. Cops would make arrests. DA turn them loose on their own fucking recognizance to be back out there doing it again the very next night. This is the problem. When the maggots become the de facto shock troops for the regime, all of the accusations of authoritarian control, fascist ambitions among conservatives, the left has developed a very bad problem with projection. I won't say they developed it. They've always more or less been like that. And in fact, we talked about it a few weeks ago in the sermon, that like how much of it is just a lack of self-awareness and how much of it is following, the Saul Alinsky playbook. Always accuse the other side of what you yourself are doing. It's hard to say. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But those riots continued, and we are being beat. Now, those, again, judging by the same definition, was there vandalism? Yes. to a way greater degree. Fires, yes. Violence, yes. Injured cops, yes. Murdered civilians, yes. What you can't say for January 6th, oopsie, except for the one person who did lose her life in the incident, Ashley Babbitt. Thanks to social media, we're more or less encouraged. We are more or less encouraged not to talk about Ashley Babbitt, shot in the neck by a Capitol Police officer. Capitol Police officer who was protecting no less than Nancy Pelosi. Capitol Police officer who just months before left a loaded Glock in a public restroom inside the Capitol building, wasn't disciplined, wasn't terminated. Shot Ashley Babbitt in the neck. Admitted during his deposition that he did not have any reason to believe that she was armed. There's your fatality. The deadly insurrection. There's your fatality. One participant, a woman, a Trump supporter. No cops, no feds, no Congress people. But again, it comes down to the framing. May the 29th. May the 29th of 2020. I want you to go down the list and look at every grievance that this committee has and every definition that this committee uses to refer to January 6th as an insurrection. And I want you to go down the list of what happened between May the 29th and May the 29th and May the 31st of 2020 and tell me that it does not meet or exceed that criteria. The Antifa maggots set fire to an historic church with the intent of fucking destroying it. They nearly breached the gates at the White House. What are we hearing about January 6th? Why is it different? My Capitol. The White House. The BLM and Antifa maggots damn near breached the gates of the White House. They set a Secret Service guard shack on fire. Numerous Secret Service agents were injured. They had so overwhelmed the entryway that they had to pull Trump into a emergency bunker for his own safety. And what did the media say about that? Did the media lambaste these people for insurrection, call them revolutionaries, say that they were domestic terrorists? No, they made fun of Trump for going and hiding in the bunker. Probably not Trump's call. Talk to Bongino about this, and he'll tell you, fucking Secret Service, that's, standard protocol. Fuck, they're about to breach the gates, POTUS goes underground. In any case, half of DC was on fire. Again, from the intro, this is, I probably should have pulled up some more. I didn't think I'd be revisiting this. But this is from DC between 29 May and 31 May. And that was just, there were fires all over the fucking city. Those people were not only was the egregiousness of their offenses minimized by the mainstream media, right? They were lauded by the mainstream media. And no less than Kamala Harris at the time was part of a fund to bail these fucking people out. Do you understand? We're in some straight up third world banana republic dictatorship here, but on a much, much larger scale within the confines of an industrialized Western alleged democracy. Things are getting a little frightening. But again, it's the gaslighting. We're crazy for looking at a city on fire, and when they tell us, well, it's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest, we look at a city on fire, we go, fuck, man, that's a city on fire. Oh my God, you're so crazy. It's mostly peaceful. Which stands to reason about mostly peaceful. But the framing always expands. They tried to sell us that it was pre-planned. Not only was it pre-planned, but that none other than Donald Trump himself was behind it. And yet they want us to forget that August the 20th of last year, Reuters released this little report. The FBI finds scant evidence that the U.S. Capitol attack was coordinated. In other words, exactly what we've been calling it, a demonstration that fucking got out of hand. But again, for us to call it that, we're tinfoil hat, we're crazy, we're conspiracy theorists. And if we point out what Reuters said, they're giving us the narrative now, the January 6th committee, they're giving us the narrative now. But if we point out what they themselves had to say, what Reuters had to say about it was there is no evidence that it was coordinated. We're crazy. Not only are we crazy, but we get accused of being part of the insurrection. Because you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. I thought that was bullshit when George W. Bush said it. I think it's tenfold as fucking bullshit now. There's no room for nuance. There's no room for subtlety. There's no room for any of these things anymore. Because you either follow the narrative or you don't. But here's where it gets. Now, you guys can think back. We remember during the Obama years, Janet Napolitano, head of Department of Homeland Security. And you remember that her assessment of threats, nope, it's not fundamentalist Islam, right? It's not radical Islam. It's not left-wing this or left-wing that, any number of terrorist organizations. The threat was domestic right-wing extremism. They were trying to sell it to us all through the Obama years. And now we're getting a redux on that as well. They try to expand the definition. Here's how, and this is the article was published in the Seattle Times. According to the Department of Homeland Security, are you ready for this? To avoid detection, here's what they're saying. Again, white Christian nationalist. Boogie, 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 boogie. To avoid detection from artificial intelligence-powered moderation, users don't use obvious terms like white genocide or white power in conversation. Here comes a coded speech dog whistle. They signal their beliefs in other ways. Fair enough. They signal their beliefs in other ways. A Christian cross emoji in their profile, or words like Anglo or pilled, a term embraced by far-right chat rooms in usernames. You guys can look that up. That is in the Seattle Times. That one was passed along by little Kenzie Puff, Mac and Liberty. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you should be following her. Mac and Liberty, Kenzie Puff. She's quite the star in the cosplay world. She's a very, very pretty young thing. But she's sharp and she's a devout libertarian. So check her out, Mac and Liberty. She's the one that passed that along. Big fan. But the Seattle Times is just acting as an information relay point for the Department of Homeland Security. And what are they telling us? Was that the way the right-wing extremists are signaling to each other now is we're putting crosses in our profiles. Boy, that sounds dangerous, doesn't it? Using words like Anglo, or red-pilled, which would be hilarious in its naivety if it wasn't A, deliberate, and B, focused with very, very specific intent against one very, very specific demographic, which continues to get broader. And it's got nothing to do with the politics or the culture or the race. It's got everything to do with opposition to the regime. If you are an enemy of the narrative, you are an enemy of the regime. If you question the way that we implement power, you are an enemy of the regime. If you are a bystander and you see the things that we're doing and you make the observation, hey man, that's kind of fucked up, don't you think? You become one of them. Case in point, school board meetings. They lie with such frequency and with such a degree of comfort that it's not only sometimes difficult to fathom, but damn near impossible to fucking keep track of. But Mayorkas, when he was doing the thing, the teachers union gave him that memo and he fucking passed it right along to the Department of Homeland Security. Next thing you know, angry parents at school board meetings are being treated like domestic terrorists. And any bystander, any casual observer that looked at that and went, hey man, don't you think that's an overreach? You're next on the watch list. I watched the Bush administration, junta. I watched the Bush junta do this for 8 fucking years. Initially with John Ashcroft as Attorney General and then later with Alberto Gonzales. I raged against it then. Because even for a Republican, an alleged conservative, that is an authoritarian fucking power grab. And remember that P word, principle? As a matter of principle, I will stand against that kind of authoritarian overreach. I did it for 8 years with Bush and his cronies running around. I didn't do that just so I could roll over and play dead for Obama, but a lot of people did. And now that we've got Biden in the White House, people are rolling right over and playing again. It's not only okay, it's necessary, you see, because of the right-wing extremist. And if you think we're anywhere near out of the woods, you couldn't be more wrong. What did we find out? What did we find out? Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Truth. They were trying to explain the domestic disinformation oversight board. That was a colorful name for it. It comes down to Ministry of Truth. It's Orwellian as it gets. And quite properly, they were called on it. And what did they say? Oh, we're having a problem with our messaging. Our messaging. That's a little disturbing. But this came out, Washington Times, ill-fated DHS disinformation board, and thank God for one congressman who used a little bit of stroke, Josh Hawley from Missouri. He used a little bit of his political stroke and got some Freedom of Information Act requests expedited. And what did they find out? Exactly what we fucking told you. We told you that they would be using it. They would be partnering with big tech because they already have been for years in unofficial capacity saying, hey, we will decide what is true, what is not, what you are allowed to speak about, what is not, which narratives will get pushed, which ones will get squashed. And we will work directly with these corporations to facilitate that. And they will be doing it domestically. And what did Mayorkas tell us? Mayorkas assured us that no, we're only looking at foreign sources of disinformation. Like Russians telling us that they've got legitimate interest in fucking Donbass. Misinformation like that. Or, and here's my favorite, the cartels issuing disinformation that our border isn't secure. Don't look at me. That's from Mayorkas. Yeah. We're not watching the news and seeing our own fucking borders. No, sorry, Bob. Nope. That's the cartels spreading misinformation. Misinformation, which of course must be controlled. That's what they said they were going to do. And that's what they said was going to be the limit of it. But as Josh Hawley found out, it is exactly like we predicted. The board, ill-fated DHS disinformation board, pursued partnership with social media platforms to censor content. Is that coming from Epoch News? Is that coming from Fox? Is that coming from OAN? Nope. Washington Times. Those crazy right-wing extremists. They must be crazy right-wing extremists because they're fucking with the narrative. For us, it's just going to be another one of those that we fall under. Hey, man, we fucking told you. This doesn't come as a surprise to anybody. Documents they released included a 2021 memo from Mr. Mayorkas suggesting a creation of the board, and another one, charter establishing the board, and a schedule from April describing the board leaders' meetings with Twitter executives. Ask yourself again why they're so fucking bent out of shape about Elon taking over at Twitter. It's not speculation anymore. We're way past that. But here's where it gets much, much more sinister. We are already at a juncture where the executive branch, where the regime, let's forget about the three branches and the separation of powers, because again, number one, because the executive has been pulling more and more and more power in for itself ever since Reagan, if we are honest, but particularly under the administration of Bush Sr. and Clinton and Bush Jr. and Obama, yanking that executive power that was not delegated to the executive branch. So let's dismiss with the concept of separation of powers just for a minute. And instead of saying the executive branch, we will just say the regime. Because right now they're working fucking seamlessly, aren't they? What are regimes, authoritarian regimes? They control the flow of information. There's hell-bent for leather on that. And of course, the ostensibly free media functioning as a de facto propaganda arm. I'm just rehashing stuff. None of this is new to y'all. None. But I tell you where we're getting into a weird area. And particularly when you're pushing the narrative of insurrection and domestic extremism. You see, and we have George W. to thank for this with the Patriot Act. Once you become, you remember the speech? You're either with us or you're with a terrorist. That didn't stop with foreign powers, man. That was the start of the domestic surveillance state. And a lot of you so-called conservatives, fucking morons, because I warned you, a lot of you so-called conservatives egged that shit on. So you got nobody to blame but yourself for this one. When those powers that you thought would never, this is the point of being principled. You never thought that would come back to bite you in the ass. But here it is, that fresh set of teeth. You feel it? They can label you an insurrectionist, a domestic terrorist. Thank you, George W., for putting the Patriot Act in place. Thank you, all of the senators and congressmen who voted for the Patriot Act, which would have been everybody except Ron Paul, including Joe Biden at the time. You get labeled an insurrectionist, you are persona non grata. You cease to be fucking human for terms of fucking law enforcement. To give any government that power over its own fucking citizens is inevitably going to end horribly, and you can disagree as much as you want. What do we know about Michigan? Gretchen Whitmer, right? Fucking Herr Whitmer, right? From Michigan. Of all of the authoritarian power grabs during the COVID lockdowns, I would say that hers is arguably the most egregious. Forbidding citizens to buy seeds so they could grow their own food. Look that up. Happened. Threatening to use the power of her office to make emergency measures permanent if people didn't vote the way she said they would vote. You can look that up. It happened. As So what happened to Gretchen Whitmer? Well, another one of those kidnapping plots, one of those horrible things that the FBI is always trying to call domestic terrorists, right? And the media did their duty, and they blew it up. Michigan is a swing state. I should get to that immediately because that's the salient point here. Michigan is one of those important swing states. It's one of those that had some anomalies during the 2020 election. Very important swing state. And you've got one of the regime's own in control up there. Botox, makeup, and silicone. She's running it. The people want her out. She's polling fucking horribly because people got to see exactly who and what she was during the COVID lockdowns. They want her gone. And there's a fellow by the name of Ryan Kelly who was running against Gretchen Whitmer for the governorship of Michigan. Well, guess what happened on Thursday? Ryan Kelly, opponent of one of the regime's own, got arrested right there on the fucking street. Got yanked out and fucking arrested for his involvement in January 6th. Did he steal Pelosi's laptop? Did he smash windows? Did he throw bricks at fucking Capitol police officers? No. He was accused of 4 misdemeanors, all of which involved trespassing. Not even for being in the building, but for being in a part of the building that he hadn't been granted access to. Pretty funny on Kimmel the other night when the cadaver in chief was laughing. Well, it's about the time I'll just start arresting my opponents. I'm not laughing, Sparky. We see what they're up to. We do. It's right there. Has been forever. Nothing's essentially changed on that. And it's not anything that you guys aren't really aware that they were capable of. We're just getting to see it manifest. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Desperate regimes do really desperate shit to hold on to power. There is not a single poll in the United States of America, and probably not anywhere in the world, that thinks that the Democrats have an Ice Cube's chance at Satan's asshole come the midterms. They're going to get buried. They're going to get utterly fucking crushed. This propaganda extravaganza that they're doing now on January 6th, scare, boogeyman, threat to our democracy. They have no policy. So you got to scare people. Fear is a powerful motivator. Don't ever fucking underestimate that. But the same fear that they are counting on to get the electorate to forget that they can't afford food and they can't get baby formula and that they're being demographically replaced, and that the economy's in the shitter and that their kids' future is being sold down the fucking river, and no one is coming to save them. The way that they get you to forget about that is fear. Fear. Insurrection. Threat to our democracy. Well, the irony of that is that the same fear they are trying to use to motivate you towards what they consider correct action is the same fear that is motivating them to take actions of an authoritarian nature and play right into the hands of exactly what they're telling you to be afraid of. You tracking? You feel me? Be afraid of them because they are dictators and they are going to crush their political opponents and use the power of the federal government to squash opposition and to censor the media and to tell you what you can and can't hear. That's what they're fucking telling you, to scare the shit out of you, to make you vote in a way that they consider correct. I'll dispute that with you later, Brian. They're using all those fear tactics to get you to vote and take the correct action. what they're figuring out real quick by the polling, by all the PR indicators is that fear's not working anymore. So the fear that they're feeling is motivating them to do the exact thing of which they accuse us. You're going to see more of Ryan Kelly. You're going to see more of the other Trump administration official that was led away in leg irons. You're going to see more Roger Stones. You're going to see a lot more of that. At least for the next few months going into the midterms. What happens after the midterms? We'll judge from there. And they do control the ballots. Brian's got a valid point, but not in every state. And here's the difference. There's a lot of fucking light on them now. That is the thing about vermin like rats and cockroaches. They avoid the light. Degenerates and miscreants, they avoid the fucking light. And the propaganda ministry is doing everything they can to keep that light anywhere but that. The unfortunate reality is that fundamentally, as I've always said, people are suckers for the truth. Truth shall set you free, but first it's going to really, really piss you off. You're looking at an army of pissed off people, not outside the Capitol building. You're looking at an army of pissed off people, not outside of the Supreme Court. You're looking at an army of pissed off people in their own fucking homes, staring at that glowing box that's been giving them what they were supposed to take as the truth and realizing that they're being lied to. And getting back to one of the first things we talked about here, getting right back to where we came in. That signal to noise ratio, they will try to bury you with the noise. But that noise is only coming from that one box in your living room or that one box in your car. It's the same speech, it's the same narrative, and it's been played out to death. They can control the perception that comes through the glowing box. They can control the perception of steering with algorithms, making sure that you click on the right things and that you hear the right things. The one thing they have no control over, and the thing that scares the hell out of them, because they know, authoritarians know their own history. They know how this ends. They always manage to convince themselves that it'll be different this time, but it never is. They watched it in the communist bloc. They watched it when the Soviet Union fell apart. The one area in which they have no established control is here, and most importantly, here. You can tell the same lie through the same half dozen avenues and tell that lie 1,000,000 times. But that lie will never carry the weight of 1,000,000 truths spoken from 1,000,000 mouths to 1,000,000 set of ears. A million little conversations, 1,000,000 idle talks, 1,000,000 boring chats, 1,000,000 guys sitting around a table with a cup of coffee, calm, rational voices. Because they keep telling the same lies over and over and over again. The reputation has droned it now to the point where it just blends into the background noise. And the one thing people want to hear isn't a speaker. It's not a glowing box. It's a human voice. A human voice guided by a human heart with views informed by a human mind. So if we want to hang on to that strength, and we really, really will need to hang on to that strength going into what's coming. Feel what's in your heart, guide it with your mind, and speak. One lie repeated 1,000 times will drone into background noise. But 1,000,000 solid conversations isn't just getting out the word, isn't just expanding and boosting the bandwidth. 1,000 conversations is how we win. So for the love of God, nothing is more important that we all keep speaking. Think with the head, find it in your heart, and speak. Nothing will be more important than that going forward to our survival politically, demographically, culturally, socially, and individually. Your truth, your history, your future, your children all depends on your voice. Fucking use it. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. Don't let it get you down, man. Don't ever let it get you down. None of this. Yes, it's getting thick. Yes, it's getting heavy. But they're running out of ideas and they're fucking desperate. And we're not guided by desperation. They want us to be. Guided by desperation and fear, but we're not. We're not. We're moving forward. We're not afraid. So hold on to that hope in your heart. Cleave to the people that are like minds and kindred spirits. Make no room for anybody else. Because now we're hitting a point where the rubber meets the road. Before it was all theoretical. Now it fucking counts. Never lose sight of that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to pass that little digital collection plate around. If anything that I had to offer you changed your outlook, or maybe some information you haven't been exposed to, or just found it entertaining, you want to toss me a little bit of coin, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Venmo, I'm on Facebook Pay, you name it, Cash App. I'm around. If you want to toss me a little bit, that would be great. If not, totally get it. We are still dealing with a Biden economy, so I totally get it. It's cool. But I tell you what you can do. You have your own social media platforms. Spread the word, man. Tell people about the program. Again, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And we do the replay now on BitChute and Rumble. So turn some people onto it. Let them know, hey, man, just fat fucking toothless cripple. Crane operator with some opinions, man. He gets on race for a couple hours every Sunday. You know, maybe you guys will dig it. But for all of my sinner sisters, for all of my reverends rangers, for all of my OG prophets of doom, here's what you can do. Above and beyond anything else. Not for me, some for me, but mostly for yourself. Remember the directives, man. Remember those prime directives and never lose sight. Never lose sight. Try to bury you with the noise. You got to be that signal. Cut through the noise. Or try to smother you with the darkness. Dehumanize you, demoralize you, crush your fucking will. You got to be that light in that world full of darkness. And rolling forward, and I mean this, my heart of hearts, I mean physically, spiritually, mentally, morally. They will try to bury you with their own weakness. You have got to be the strength in a world full of weakness. Be that strength in a world full of weakness. Nothing going forward will be even more important. Use that voice, communicate, stay strong. I appreciate you guys being here. I love you all. And I mean that deep down, man. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. See you guys next Sunday. Peace. I love y'all, man. See ya.